Three, two, one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Morningscape podcast. I'm Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to break down Monday's six-game NHL DFS slate. DJ, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Definitely been EV positive throughout the year, really well in the NHL. This year, it just feels like everything that we are saying, and maybe not every time, but the sim and everything is kind of coming together right now this year. And yeah, I've just been having a really good time playing DFS, and I know you had just had a really big night in NFL, so maybe you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, could have taken down some of the Remax sort of tournaments, but Carlos Hyde decided to punch a dude in the face instead of catching the football for the last 2 minutes of the game, which really hurt my chances there. And then Zeke fell, I think, 6 yards short of the 100-yard bonus. And he was pretty popular, but I still ended up about 10x on the day. So certainly a very, very good NFL slate. And looking forward to diving into Monday's action. The big featured tournament on DraftKings is the Light the Lamp, and that is $150 entry. Yours truly managed to pick up 2 tickets to that through a pretty nice stretch of DFS wins the past week. 2 entries into that. So hopefully one of you guys takes third behind me, and we can go Selly.
Yeah. I think I always forget about those tournaments to get those tickets. I just never think to play them. So I'm gonna need you to start texting me when there's tournaments for tickets, because I never think to do it.
Well, I'll be in them. So.
Well, all right. So I'm just saying, that kind of gives me the handicap, the bonus of taking you down. I don't know. I'm just I got to get into those more, because I remember I got a ticket to something before in baseball and I got murdered in it. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun to get in. Yeah, it was just so much fun to get involved and get into those giant tournaments, and then it just really helps me to see how other people construct rosters, some of the big name guys. So I think getting into those tournaments can be extremely valuable for learning. Just in general. I mean, it's always good to look at some of the sharp guys' lineups on a night-to-night basis, kind of see where their money goes. This is a good suggestion in general. I'm sorry, what?
Something I've noticed about these sort of satellites is that a lot of the bigger name cash players, they'll enter their lineups in 10-man tournaments and those sort of entries. But when you look at the field for the satellites, the $2 and the satellite to the line change, the $33 contest or whatever, they're pretty much the same concept. The top 2 out of 30 or something get paid, but there's a lot of unknowns in there. There's a lot of no badges. They're just I feel like they're very shallow fields. They're not shark heavy at all. So personally, I kind of like them, even though you're technically getting double rates. Let's be honest, even if you win money playing something, you're likely going to put it into a tournament anyways. So I kind of like having that, thing to chase, and when it works out, it's great. So I'm really hoping tomorrow, that could legit be not life changing, but 15,000 first in a very small field. That's an opportunity that I've never taken, just because I don't have the bankroll that a lot of guys do. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think that it is a fun way to kind of play DFS without without limiting yourself to the $4 tournaments because you feel bad about spending up. But yeah, let's get into the slate, because I know no one tunes in to hear me talk about what games to pick, and instead which players to pick. So let's get into the 6-game slate. The games on the slate here are Minnesota at Boston at 7 o'clock, followed by Vegas at Toronto, Columbus at New York, the Rangers, Arizona at Washington. All of the aforementioned games are 7 o'clock. Winnipeg at Dallas, 8:30, and then Detroit at Vancouver, the Fighting Brock Bessers at 10 o'clock. I mean, do you want to just mention Brock Besser in case anyone missed it on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Saturday I made just a couple of lineups, but I did throw in the Horvat Besser stack, and I put Markstrom in net. And even though my lineup, because early on it was a train wreck, I was like, well, there it goes, down the tubes, unless if I can get an absolute explosion from Besser. And yeah, he broke the slate and won me money, even though my lineup was just could have definitely fit in a nice trash can. So yeah, he is amazing, and he's still really cheap, and he's going against Detroit on a back-to-back. So when we get to that game, we'll mention him again. But yeah, he seems like a smash play.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, yes, it's easy to just call it point chasing, given that he just put up a ton of points and you're kind of chasing him. But even when you look at like when he was called up last year, and you look at his numbers, like even before last game, like he is a very consistent shot producer, and those are the sort of players I love to play while they're cheap and getting tons of minutes. So when you look at a guy like Besser, even if he doesn't, score a hat trick, he's gonna put up, he's gonna put up shots. He's gonna give you very good point equity just because he's super talented, and he's in a very good matchup again going against Detroit. So certainly don't think it's wrong to chase him, given the context of the slate and just how cheap he is still. And I think you should probably ride that out, especially in cash games. So just kind of an overview of the last 10 days, looking at the shot attempts per game as pulled from the NHL.com fantasy stats page. Number one on the slate with 6.5 shots per game, or shot attempts per game over the last 10 days. Besser, followed by Bergeron, Ryan Suter, Austin Matthews, and shockingly, Braden McNabb on the Golden Knights. They've all put up 6 or higher shot attempts per game. And then the next range is Mikko Koivu, Artemi Panarin, Dustin Byfuglien, Marchessault, Grabner, Granlund. They're kind of the next tier. But just if you're looking for like some recent trends, any of those guys catch your interest, they've been shooting the puck a bit over the last 10 days. Keep them in mind. Let's start at Minnesota at Boston. DJ, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I really like Nino Niederreiter with Suter as a stack. They both correlate on the power play one. Nino Niederreiter is kind of back to full health now. I mean, it's hard to tell with a high ankle sprain. It wasn't a severe one, but he's just kind of that. Like, I mean, obviously he's not on your list because he hasn't played the past 10 games, but
right.
He is a shot producer in that category in which you were speaking of. He has 16 shots on goal, and I think he only has about 6 or 7 games. I don't know his exact metrics offhand, but he's 4,800 playing against a Boston team that's just not good. And Suter at 5K, I think is like a really nice price for a guy that's probably going to log nearly 30 minutes if it's a close game, which I imagine it would be somewhat close. So those are the two that I'm thinking about. Definitely a GPP stack, and I would not mind throwing in Koivu with them. If you want a 3-man, Koivu at 5,200. You mentioned him; he was kind of just below that upper echelon. But those three together are the stack that I'm going to definitely pull from this game.
Sure. Yeah, especially I think the thing that really intrigues me about Niederreiter is that I don't look at line matching for most teams, but Boston is one of the few teams where I look and I say, going against Bergeron is a very tall task. I would suspect that Bergeron will go out against the Koivu, Granlund, Zucker line, which leaves Niederreiter, Stahl, and Cunnin to play like the bottom 3 lines of Boston, none of which scare me in the slightest. And what's really nice about Niederreiter is that with his return, he's worked his way back into that first power play unit, as you mentioned. He took Zucker's role playing alongside Granlund and Koivu. So I think he's a really interesting way to get exposure to a team that I always sort of like. I don't love them on this slate just because their metrics combined with Boston's defense has that game kind of rated out as one of the slower games on the slate for me. Wow, that is a loud truck.
You could hear that?
Yeah.
That wasn't really even that loud. I did earlier. The thunder and lightning was so loud here that I didn't really want to record yet. That's kind of why I waited an hour. It was bad. So that sound was nothing compared to what we almost had.
Yeah, but hopefully it didn't come through. That was just interesting. It was just a build up and then it faded away. But yeah, Nino Niederreiter is a very good exposure play to Minnesota. I don't think he's a must play by any means, but he's at a very nice price and the ideal matchup given the Boston context. I'll let you talk about Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak in a second, but I just wanted to point out that Torrey Krug looks like he is back. He had a really tough year last year. He just couldn't buy a point. His on-ice shooting percentage was super low, But what I've always been intrigued about with Torrey Krug is one, he plays on that first power play for Boston. You know, that's the ideal spot for a defenseman, really, playing with three studs such as Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak. And Torrey Krug is actually top 10 in the NHL in terms of shot production. Look at the last 3 games now. He only has 7 shots in 3 games, but he also has 5 points. And it just goes to show what can happen when a guy who's like in a very nice role gets a little bit of puck luck, and the shots go in for him, or the passes go in, I guess, to be more specific, given that he has 4 assists in his last 2 games. But I really like him in this spot as well, just because his price has fallen to the point where it doesn't really reflect his floor. And, earlier this season, he was up in the mid 5Ks, and now he's at 4.6. I just think he's a really strong play. Yeah, do you have any interest in, like, the high-price studs for Boston, Bergeron, Pastrnak, etc.?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the interest kind of stems from if you like how you would categorize this game. I mean, last game Boston they lost by 1 to Washington. So Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak all had about 23 minutes of ice time together. I mean, that correlation and that many minutes is just it's the best. It's the best you could probably find of almost any team on any slate. Like we go to the next team, Toronto, they might be in a great spot, but they're not going to have guys getting 23 minutes, all correlated, power play 1, etc. So it's always a great spot to get that GPP exposure to a team that just could blow up. And I don't think Minnesota is completely, they're not at full strength. That's the best way to put it. Dumba's just looked like a train wreck this year, and it could be a good spot because I don't think many people would be on it. So I think it's worth a flyer in GPPs to stack those 3 with Krug. My one hesitation on Krug, and it's honestly everything you said I agree with, but his minutes have seemed to stem from them getting a lot of power play time. So if you can bet on them getting, like, the reason why he had 25 minutes was clearly the power play. But then again, you need that power play exposure to have that stack blow up. So the 4-man stack would be a possible way to go, I think, tomorrow in GPP only. But if I had to pick one, like, I think Pasternak's my favorite, and then Bergeron's kind of the safest, and/or like he fits center nicely at 7K. Like, I think those two, I don't know. I hope that's not biased. Like, I'm not trying to sound biased, but I just don't like Marchand as much as the other two. But you never know who's going to score on that line.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point on Krug. His minutes have been, I think he's good for 20 minutes. And when I look at a defenseman at Krug's price, I certainly would like him to play 25, but I don't think it's a requirement. But to be fair, I think you make a really strong point there that, keep an eye on those minutes. 25 is likely not going to happen again unless Minnesota takes a bunch of penalties. So certainly keep that in mind. But I'll echo you on the Boston side. As I mentioned, I don't think this game is any sort of like sparks flying sort of affair. So I'm likely not to touch it, but we'll see, if any news breaks or anything like that. And obviously, like, tracking Vegas. So ready to move on to Vegas at Toronto. Or are there any other cheaper guys that you were interested in? Just throwing out there as possible plays.
I mean, I'm not that interested in Heinen, but he was in the first power play last game, so I feel like we'd be dumb not to at least mention that. Yep. He is really cheap. I'm not sure his exact price.
Yeah, he is 3.6.
3.6. So is Danton? Danton.
Yep.
Yeah, Danton Heinen. His floor is definitely 0, so it's definitely boom or bust type of play. Like, you're just betting on him getting a couple goals. Luckily, he's on the fourth. He's on the 4th line first power play, so it's a huge risk. But I guess I'll mention it.
Yeah, I mean, bottom 3 line for Boston, I certainly wouldn't. If you were on the 2nd line with Rusk, Corelli, and Shea, like, it's not that big a difference. Like,
no, I agree.
3rd, 4th line, but yeah, certainly, he's not safe. But if you need someone cheap, he is certainly a good option and gives you exposure to 3 really, really high price guys. So, all right, let's go to Toronto at Vegas. Yeah, I mean, not much else to say. Vegas has this as a 6.5 over under. Toronto is the biggest favorite on the slate, even bigger favorite than Washington at home against Arizona. Um, just knowing that we don't love to play Toronto, like, do you think this matchup could convince you to take a shot on a guy like Matthews? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I could always, yeah. No, I can always be convinced to take a shot on Matthews because he can break a slate. I mean, past 2 games, he has combined 12 shots on goal, and that was against LA and St. Louis. Now he's going against Vegas, who is ready to fall off the PDO cliff. So, I mean, yeah, like Matthews has been red hot, and he is 8K, and there's no way you're going to get a Boston stack and a Matthews Nylander stack in, so you're going to have to pick between them. But I do think if you're going to take Toronto exposure, like, and Matthews was out with Hyman and Brown, so like I think Matthews could be just a one-off, especially if they run those lines again tomorrow. Although he has correlation with Nylander, I'm not exactly sure. I would definitely check the morning skate. I didn't see anything that really showed me what Toronto was going to do tomorrow as far as their lines.
right.
So I definitely would check morning skate if you're going to stack. But I think Matthews could be a one-off type of play from this game.
Yeah, I mean,
Or you could, I mean, I wouldn't even be completely opposed to a GPP game stack because I think both sides are so weak defensively that there's a chance for this game to explode, like Vegas, like the line predicts.
yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting because looking at the Vegas lines, you wouldn't really assume that Toronto's been playing like absolutely horrendously. Um, that said, they've lost. Let's see. Jeez, it's bad. They've lost 5 of the last 7, I think. Maybe it's 6 of 8 or something like that, and then 4 of their last 5. So, to be fair, they were on the road for their last 4 games, and now they return home for just a cupcake matchup. So I certainly don't think that losing, 3 out of 4 on the road trip to the 3 Pacific California teams and then at St. Louis, I certainly don't think that's like, gonna end your season. Like, that's very respectable to lose to those teams. But the expected goals metric that love Toronto for the first 7 to 8 games of the season have just completely left them. They've been getting caved in defensively. They can't get anything going offensively outside of Matthews. So I'm treading very carefully outside of Austin Matthews. I think Matthews versus Ovi. I'm actually going to play Matthews, as kind of surprising as that may sound, just because I really like a lot of the mid-tier wingers here, and I don't necessarily love a lot of the centers. So,
well, I was just gonna
kind of my rationale.
I mean, I know Arizona might not have the most sound goaltending, but I would take Ranta over. Was it Lagace? I don't even know how you say his name. Honestly,
Legacy.
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 I mean, I even watched them play, and I didn't even hear his name because I think he just missed every puck.
Maybe.
I mean, his save percentage is in 856. He has 4.43 goals against average since he's taken over as the 4th string. That's really bad. I mean, I know goals against average really isn't a great metric for measuring exactly how good a player is or whatever, but I mean, wow. Like that's the reason why I think Matthews is gonna he's his shots, if he gets 6 shots on net, one of them is gonna find the back of the net. And I'm not trying to say that there's no chance this guy could stand on his head because I'm sure he's in the NHL. He knows how to play goalie, but with that defense in front of him and Austin Matthews being one of the best shots ever, yeah, it sets up well for Matthews. I think if you're making a cash lineup, there's enough value to get Matthews in there too.
Certainly. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing a ton of value on Toronto that I like. Outside of Kasperi Kapanen for 3.1, he played 13 minutes last game alongside Nazem Kadri. I would suspect that if they change up the lines, that he would actually kind of get. I don't think he would go down to the 4th line, basically, just because I think if they change the lines up, they actually want to get something going defensively, and it's certainly basically I don't think that Kapanen will take the blame for the top guys being bad outside of Matthews for the Leafs. So I think that he would stay in a relatively decent role. I'm not sure if I mentioned he is 3.1 and he is very talented. He's not anything like break slate worthy in terms of like, oh my god, 3.1, you have to play him. But if you need a cheap guy and don't mind stomaching, the fact that he could realistically get benched, he's not going to play power play time, etc. 3.1 for Kasperi Kapanen in a top 3 line role with Toronto against the Knights, certainly a very, very strong play. Any other value to jump out to you? I keep looking at Jake Gardiner.
Yeah, no, I really don't hate the Jake Gardiner take, and I know that's kind of against our brand, but I mean, he's on that top power play unit, which I think is definitely. I love how it sounds with Marleau, Matthews, Gardiner, Nylander, and Brown. I think that one's really going to come together and start performing well.
He's 3,700.
Yeah, yeah, it's just too cheap for a guy on power play 1 against Vegas. I mean, he hasn't really put the shot metrics up, but like he's getting enough time.
Exactly.
That's the issue is he's not putting the puck on net enough. But I mean, are there any underlying numbers that you might have up right now that could maybe give us a little more love to Gardiner? Because I mean, he's been bad, but
over his last 6 games, he has a hair over 3 shot attempts per game. Certainly not great.
I was just gonna say, but maybe going against the goalie legacy, we're gonna go with. Maybe I think Babcock might be saying fire the puck on net at will, and if Gardiner, I mean, he'll probably be either the top or second highest minutes guy, so definitely he's in play. And I don't know, I think him and Matthews is a stack you could go with, and I don't hate it because they do get the power play time together.
Exactly.
So yeah,
that's a cheap defenseman I would go with. Like I love Shea Theodore, and so.
Yeah.
Honestly, either Shea Theodore or Brad Hunt, like whichever one plays, I love each of them. Like, both guys are just guys that I'm really high on in terms of like really fantasy relevant on defense, as long as they're playing power play time. But I mean, it's just crazy. Jake Gardiner for less than 4,000 in the dream matchup, and even if you don't play Matthews, like Gardner's some pretty decent exposure to Matthews. So, I really like Gardiner here. And yes, Chris Denny, I said it. Jake Gardiner, lock him up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad about it. I guess, is there anything on the Vegas side besides those defensemen? I mean, Marchess has been firing the puck at, like, he has a ton of shots on goal as of late. He's gotten decent minutes, and I mean, they kind of run 2 power play units pretty evenly. Is Marchess so any interest? Is there anyone on Vegas? I mean, it's a 6.5 over under. Like,
honestly, like I think Alex Puck is a really strong play for 3.8. He's been playing really well, and he hadn't really gotten the minutes, but might have flown under the radar on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Vegas played at Toronto or Ottawa, like middle of the day sort of thing, and Puck played 18 minutes with power play time. Like he's going to be a guy who I think you can count on for at least a couple shots on goal. And he certainly started out hot in terms of point production in his time with the Knights. So I think that there are way worse ways to spend 3.8 at wing. So if you need Vegas exposure, I think that's the guy I would go to. Like James Neal's really fallen off. He has 3 shot attempts over his last 6 games per game.
Yes.
That's simply not going to cut it, and his price is just egregious. So I think I would go cheap.
Yeah, I don't trust that top line for Vegas, Neal, Howla, and Perron. I think it's going to get some love that it doesn't deserve, and I think that the Kadri line will shut that down pretty well, and I'd be looking elsewhere. So I agree.
Don't have a top line. Like they their minutes pretty equally between the top 3 lines. So don't let the people say like, oh well, you got to play the first line that is 6.5 over, because like realistically neither of these teams have a first line. Like Matthews of course is a first line center, but his line rates could change at the snap of a finger given how bad Toronto's been and how willing Babcock has been to change things up. So I definitely wouldn't feel married to any like first line sort of analysis here. So I think we've given that game the attention it deserves.
Yes, definitely. It does deserve. Yeah.
So let's head over to maybe a sneakier eruption spot in Columbus at the New York Rangers. the Rangers are they officially bad, DJ?
Yeah, they're officially bad. I'm
Okay.
done. I'm done pretending like they're good because they're not. That's kind of
I
the
mean,
thing is it's not even I can't blame anyone on the offensive side, but the defense is bad. And I think they don't even know what to do anymore. Besides Shattenkirk and McDonough's looked like not good. But that's about I mean, it's just basically Shattenkirk looking okay, and then the rest are bad.
yeah, I mean, and not only that, but Columbus has been just smashing like they're honestly breaking the 5-on-5 expected goals for.
But you did see the news today, correct?
What news is that?
Cam
Is he back?
Atkinson placed on IR.
Oh, wow. Okay. Love it.
Columbus, yeah, they activated Gabriel Carlson.
Yep.
And yeah, placed him on injured reserve, retroactive October 20. I don't know when he'll be back, but Gabriel Carlson, I'm pretty sure he's pretty young. We definitely talked about him. He's a defenseman. He played a little bit last year. He's not a player or anything.
He's definitely not a DFS player, but yeah, he's a decently touted defenseman.
Yeah, my thought on that was that they might run 7 defensemen tomorrow and 11 forwards. It's a chance with him coming up.
Yeah, I can see that. Definitely would not take it to the bank or anything, but certainly not a bad thought. So,
and it's not. It's gonna be hard to keep an eye on until the pregame skate. So you're gonna have to be checking Matt's lists of Columbus for who goes out there for warm-ups because they generally to never run a morning skate.
Yeah. All right. So I just pulled up the season-to-date statistics on Corsica. 5-on-5 expected goals for per 60 with score adjustments on the season. On the goals for side, Columbus comes in at the number 3 in the league, behind only Edmonton. LOL, Edmonton. Oh, we can talk about them a different day, but woof. Toronto, and they started out incredibly hot, fell off the table, kind of like I said, the last few games, and then Columbus, expected goals against per 60. The worst team at 5-on-5 in the league, expected goals against, is the New York Rangers. So, it certainly the eye test is not failing us, DJ.
No.
These Rangers are terrible.
The thing is, I like watching the Rangers, and I just always imagine like a song with like a Follies song when watching their defense try to stop things from happening in front of their net. It's bad. Like I was watching them. I'm trying to remember what. I don't think it was the last game. It was one before it, and I remember like 2 plays in a row the defenseman just absolutely whiffed and just let the tap in goals backdoor. And I was just like, man. And then McDonough also got absolutely dusted. It was a Vegas game because Carrier absolutely burned McDonough. And I'm like, wow, the 4th liner for Vegas here, it's bad. And I really think that you could go with either of the top 2 lines with Columbus and feel pretty good about it. But is there if you had to pick kind of like a stack in general, is there one stack that's kind of calling your name?
Well, calling my name last game. Well, okay, I mentioned Boone Jenner already. I think Boone Jenner is an absolute brutal lock as long as Cam Atkinson is out. He was playing power play 1 in the Atkinson role. He's just a very strong shot producer. His last couple games actually have been like lackluster in terms of shot production, and yet he has a goal and 3 assists in those 2 games. So his price hasn't really moved. He's due for a game where he has like 6 or 7 shots and then picked up a couple points. Like he's like an actual good player. He's playing 20 plus minutes a night. So to answer your question, last game Boone Jenner played on a line with Brandon Dubinsky and Oliver Bjorkstrand. Yeah, if your ears perked up, just imagine what I did right there.
Yeah, I know.
That's the money right there. Bjorkstrand, Jenner, super cheap. You can fit Matthews, you can fit the more expensive guys on the slate in with them, and you get exposure to 2 pretty solid power play units. Hopefully they can get that power play going a little bit better, since it's been pretty much ice cold for the whole season. But
yeah,
regardless, what are your thoughts?
No, I really like Seth Jones with any of these guys as well. I mean, he's getting the bulk of the minutes, and I know Werenski's on that first power play, but Seth Jones had a ton of correlation to that first power play. I'm a big fan of his game. I really think that he is extremely underrated. As far as a DFS asset this year, he's just been very consistent. And in some of the games where Columbus like put it all out there, like really had great games, like his shots on goal have definitely been up. As of late, maybe not the best, but his price has gone down because of his maybe not great play as of the past couple games. Even though his last game he had 2 points. Before that, I'm saying he had a couple kind of duds. But I really like him tomorrow.
Yeah. The last 10 days, so last 5 games for the Blue Jackets, Seth Jones is at 4 shot attempts per game, and Werenski is at 5 per game. Difference to factor into anything. I think you can give Seth Jones a slightly better block shots projection, but that's very rudimentary, and I wouldn't really I would just more correlate your stacks based off of like the power plays, given that it's kind of like Florida in that their top 2 defensemen play together at 5-on-5, are both very good plays individually. So you just kind of got to keep an eye on which power play you kind of want to correlate with. And honestly, you could correlate with both. It's not the dumbest thing in the world to play them both together, especially at these relatively fair prices.
Yeah, can I just mention one more stat from Columbus from their last game really quick? Because I think it could. So in the last game, they lost 5-4 in a shootout to Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay scored 4 goals. Columbus had 4 goals, shootout. Do you want to guess how many of those goals Columbus scored Werenski and Jones were on the ice for?
I'll go with 3.
All 4. Every goal that Columbus scored, they were on the ice for. They were on the ice for 0 of the 4 against.
So they're good.
So they're good, and that's Tampa Bay. That's like the best team in the NHL, arguably right now. Like you can make the case for it. These guys are unreal. Like they're really, really, really good. And
all right,
yes,
I want to further that one sec. Looking at the shot attempts percentage, so the Corsi percentage last game, Tampa Bay actually outshot the Blue Jackets. However, Werenski was a 70% Corsi player, and Jones was a little bit below 65. So, easily the top 2 players.
I don't mind putting them together in the GPP.
Exactly. Yep, I think that's very, very strong.
They both scored together 5-on-5. I mean, it's not saying it's going to repeat itself, but I mean, at the same time, they're on the ice a lot, and they are on the ice when Columbus is scoring.
Absolutely.
So
bang. Anyone on the Rangers side that you really want to play? I mean, I think either of the top 2 lines for Columbus are in play. If you were looking for that information here, the quote-unquote Panarin line, I guess if you want to call it, he kind of split time between Foligno, Anderson, and then Alex Wenberg and whoever. It's very convoluted, but just know that pretty much any of these guys correlate very well, and that Josh Anderson is a guy who's pretty cheap, getting pretty big minutes, and now he's earned some power play time with the strong play. So don't hate that play, but he's a little bit expensive for my taste. I think I would prefer the Jenner Bjorkstrand side of the Columbus game. So DJ, anyone on the Rangers jump out to you, like deep defenseman or anything like that?
Brady Shea is the one guy. He has definitely had some huge block shot games, and this kind of feels like another one. He's 3,400. He's been getting 20 to 22 minutes of ice time in this past 5 games. Power play 1 with, actually probably power play 2, I guess. But they seem to kind of keep it somewhat even. But I think he's actually good. Like out of all their defensemen, like Shea and Shattenkirk are probably the top 2. They definitely played the best out of anyone else. So I do like Brady Shea. 3.4 is just so cheap for a guy with that much exposure. And I think he has a decent DFS projection as far as how he plays. So that'd be the one guy that is interesting for cash at that cheap.
Sure. Yeah, there's no power play time to speak of with him, but that's fine.
Look, he did last game.
Okay.
In the last game, he was with Nash, Miller, McDonough. Yeah, because they sat. Who they sat? They sat someone that was there. Why can't I think of his name? They changed their lineup like right before. They sat Brendan Smith, and they put him in, and he took the power play role. So if they do that again, I mean, like they did win, and like Shea did. I don't know. I mean, they scored on that power play with Shea in. So I don't know.
Shay's an actual good play. I will agree with you there.
Okay.
I think I think he's the one guy I would look to for the Rangers, and
Yeah.
it's a very strong overall play regardless of what team he plays for. So I think those three are the main games you want to talk about. But another doozy right here. Picked a good slate for the big GPP, I guess. But Washington at home against the Arizona Coyotes. Um, we kind of hinted at it. Ovechkin, obviously a premier play, um, but it's so tough. It's so tough to fade OV in a spot like this. Um, However, I just think if you're forced to pick between the two, PS, we may have given you enough value that you can fit them both in.
I think so.
But
no, I really do. Like I'm like making lineups as we go. Just kind of like looking through it, and I absolutely think you can fit them both in with a couple stacks that are really good.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously Ovechkin is Alex Ovechkin. He has 67 shots on the season in just 14 games. 11 of those have gone in for a nice, tidy 16 shooting percentage. Nothing about that is unsustainable. Alex Ovechkin is the GOAT at goal scoring, and he's the GOAT for DFS. Like, there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, clearly, he's the premier play here. DJ, are you looking to stack OV with someone like Kuznetsov or trying to save a bit more somewhere?
It's going to be really hard to get those two together. I mean, I never hate it, especially against Arizona. I mean, you could stack pretty much any of the like either of the top two lines, but Kuznetsov's been pretty cold as of late, and his minutes have kind of. I mean, at least in the last game, his minutes went down a bit. I don't exactly know what's going on with him. Only 3 goals in the year. Like I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure if I love it enough because his price. Like if its price wasn't as high as it is, I don't know. I mean, I'm not taking Smith Pele if that's your next question. So I think Ovi and possibly Carlson would be a really nice stack, but I'm not really looking to stack him with Kuznetsov as much.
Yeah,
I don't hate it ever, but it's not great right now. Mm-hmm. It could bounce back, and it might go overlooked because Kuznetsov has been bad as of late. So it could be a bit sneaky, but I don't love it from like a face value perspective.
Yeah, so sadly, John Carlson's price has risen from the 5.2 where I was screaming at you guys to jam him in but at 3.9, that's still a very fair price. I mean, he's still playing 27 to 29 minutes a night. Like, that's just crazy. And for a guy who has a very decent shot rate, per minute on last few years, he's been one of the better defensemen in the league. So you're certainly not missing out on any sort of like DFS value with this increased role for John Carlson. And given that he plays on the power play 1 with Ovi, certainly love him as a GPP stack. But Ovi is one of the rare guys that like actually is like a legitimate play by himself, just because he can rack up 9 shots on goal. So even if he scores just 1 goal, you're not getting killed. Whereas a guy like Kuznetsov, if Ovi has 9 shots and 1 goal, it's really tough for him to kind of meet value because he's going to put up maybe 1 shot and get an assist. Like, that's not good. So I do agree. I think Kuznetsov is just a bit expensive, and certainly don't hate either saving a little bit and going with Nick Backstrom. The same thing. Like, you're really just hoping for multi-assist games from either of them, and simply just like a very different sort of correlation kind of play.
Yeah, that really might be the way to go. Go with like Backstrom, Ovi, Carlson. I mean, definitely don't hate it. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see the Backstrom Ovechkin like line this year, but like if that does happen tomorrow and like we find that out in like the pregame skate, absolutely try to jam that in some GPPs.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening anytime.
No, it's very unlikely. I'm just saying like I would keep an eye peeled because if that does happen, then you could probably get that stack at the lowest ever. And in this kind of a matchup, it could be huge. Maybe I'm a fortune teller. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I'm gonna nail this one. You never know.
Look. I'm not saying that Backstrom Ovechkin is a bad correlation, but that's just because Backstrom handles the puck so much on the power play. That was kind of my reasoning. Like, I don't think there's anything. I don't want to mislead anyone into thinking that like Washington's going to radically change their lines.
Okay, but your takes aren't quite hot enough, and this is a hot take show. I mean, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, yeah, will it happen? Probably not, but yeah, okay. We
DJ
can
and
move on.
Mary Trotz Mitchell calling the line change this year. So
I was more of saying if you should definitely keep your eye on it before puck drops at 7 p.m. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, dude. Okay. Arizona, Clayton Keller continues to score goals. 6,200. Are you in?
No. No, I'm not in.
Okay.
Okay.
I just thought that was
I mean,
interesting kind of
like
that was your hot city, but all right.
I don't hate it. Like I don't like. It's not like I'm totally against it, but at the same time, it's like he's just so expensive now. It's like at the same price, I think there's better plays. Like I think Panarin at the same price is a better play.
Oh, that's a take I like.
So that's why it's hard.
Yeah. If you're looking to stack Arizona, I certainly would not discourage it, just because Washington has not really looked like the same dominant team they were last year. It looked like last game, just about halfway through or so, they switched off Perlini from the top line and went with Tobias Rieder. It could be the other way around, so just keep an eye on it. But Stepan and Keller has been like the first line, and Domi actually got switched off of that line, so that really hurts his value in my opinion. But both Rieder and Perlini were on the power play 1, along with Ekman Larson and the Stepan Keller duo that I mentioned. So either one of those guys can make for a decent way to get that line for pretty cheap, given that Keller and Stepan aren't, they're firmly in the mid-range, and then you grab a really cheap guy with them. But that's the only place I would go on Arizona. I think Ekman Larson, like a guy like Corey Krug, I just think is a much better play at the same price, given that Ekman Larson now has been struggling to generate shots for like literally a full season now. It is encouraging that he's put up 2, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3 shots on goal his last however many games that was, but he's not really doing it through raw like shot attempts. And until I see that number like really jump, or at least sustain for another few weeks, I'm not ready to go full bore on welcoming back Ekman Larson to my lineups. So I think I'm kind of tempering expectations on Ekman Larson for the time being. But anyone else here in this game that you like, Deej?
No, I mean, you covered it very, very well. I don't think I could add anything to that. I just am in agreement. I think we nailed this game. Let's get to Dallas at Winnipeg, or is it Winnipeg at Dallas? Winnipeg at Dallas.
Winnipeg at Dallas. They're playing again, boys.
They're always like I swear they play 30 times a year. Like we're just in between stretches of Winnipeg at Dallas.
Yeah.
Every time there's a slate without them.
Yeah, so I mean, well, relative to the other games on this slate, I just don't think that it's like I just don't think that this game is any more of a lock to go off than any of the other games. And just all of the big guys here are so expensive. Like Sagan, 7.5, Scheifele, 7.2. Let's see. Wheeler, 7.6. Jamie Benn, 7.2. Line A, Ellers, each 7K. Like, give me a break, guys. Like I get that they're very talented hockey players, but it's just not for me. Like, I am much more a fan of the other games on this slate at much cheaper prices. But DJ, that said, anyone on either of these sides catch your eye, given that, last game between them was pretty up-tempo. Winnipeg kind of slaughtered Dallas, but Dallas came on strong at the end to kind of make it somewhat a game.
I don't know. It's really hard to afford these like top-tier guys, and that's what you need from both teams. I mean, like if you want to play Winnipeg, you got to play guys that are going to break the bank. If you want to play Dallas, you got to play the guys that break the bank. I mean, I know in the last game for Dallas, it was a lot of guys besides the Sagan power play goal. Like all the other goals came from kind of random fourth and third liners, so that would have really sunk you. I don't think that's going to happen again against Winnipeg, and that's not going to happen often. But I think my main concern about this game is if you fade Ovechkin and Matthews, because you pretty much have to get the line correlation you need, and it doesn't pan out, like you are way behind the field. I don't know. And another thing about Winnipeg is they had 4 goals against Montreal, but 3 of those 4 came on the power play, and you can't, like, I know, like, you got to have that power play stack, but you can't bet on that again. I don't know. I would say, yeah, it's not a total fade, but I can't really pick out one player that I think is just a smash play.
Right. I mean, even Dustin Byfuglien is still well below where we're used to seeing him, given the past 3 to 4 seasons of just like daily fantasy excellence. But even Dustin Byfuglien is just a hair over 2 shots on goal per game. And for 5.7, you're not getting that big a discount on him anymore, especially given his production. So, Klingberg is very reasonable, I would say, just because like he's actually been like much more productive than Byfuglien has. He has 60 shots plus blocks in just 14 games, whereas Byfuglien is closer to 40. Doing some quick math. So Klingberg, I think, is like an actual like good play, but I'm much more apt to go with Carlson or one of the Columbus guys myself.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have especially in cash. I'd rather have exposure to Columbus guys. But is there any one player maybe or like 2 guys? You kind of mentioned Klingberg, but let's say you're making a cash lineup. Is there one guy that you think should definitely warrant some consideration, or is it like, well, why would I go with Wheeler when I could spend $400 more for Matthews?
Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at, especially for cash games.
That's what I'm thinking too.
I think my top play from this game would be Tyler Seguin, just because he is so electric and such a good shot generator. And obviously, we love getting guys in the power play against Winnipeg. So Seguin's like basically Dallas's Ovechkin. And given that the wing is much deeper, I think, in terms of depth than center is on this slate, I don't hate, the Matthew Seguin starting your team and then kind of fitting in some good values around them and hoping that the scoring on the slate is rather spread out and therefore getting yourself deep into the money for the tournament. But I wouldn't necessarily advocate it for cash games, certainly. And I think Matthews is just simply a better play. So that's a bit long-winded of my take on that. One cheap guy that I keep looking at, but I never seem to pull the trigger on, is Josh Morrissey. But I mean, the kid's playing. Well, he's like exactly our age, but he's playing a ton of minutes. And I mean, you look at this; his block shot numbers are some of the best in the entire NHL. On the season, in 13 games, he has 30 block shots, and he also has added 17 shots on goal. So when you're looking at a guy who's like 3.4 and he's giving you over 3 blocks plus shots per game, that's never a bad spot to be in. I would prefer it if he got power play time, just given that he was such a prolific juniors scoring defenseman. However, it looked like Byfuglien, Trouba, and Myers are being trusted to do like the power play heavy lifting. So that's really disappointing. But that said, 20 minutes for 3.4 with a guy who blocks as many shots as far as he does. I think he's a really decent play at 3.4, and he could chip in a 5-on-5 assist with the Scheifele's, the Wheelers, the Line, etc. So definitely not the worst play down there.
No, I agree with that. I would just ask, would you rather take Brady Shea, but barring he is power play too, or Morrissey at the same price? I mean, those guys both kind of consideration in cash, but which one might be the better value?
I think for cash games, I would actually tend to go with Jay, just because Jay's actually kind of been doing the same thing that Morrissey has. I mean, just looking at his box score numbers, 15 games, Brady Shea has 57 or 58 blocks per shot. That's almost 4 per game. Mm-hmm. And if he's playing power play, if he's playing 5-on-5 with Kevin Shattenkirk, that's definitely a spot that I think But either one is a very fine play, given who you're trying to correlate it with, in my opinion.
Also, if you're kind of newer to DFS hockey and you haven't heard of Brady Shea, his last name is spelled Skjei. So it's said Shea, but it doesn't look anything like it. So if you can't find him tomorrow, just remember his name is spelled egregiously.
It's like
okay.
DJ spelled his name, like on the birth certificate. Like,
wait, what?
It's like you tried to spell his name on his birth certificate. Like,
oh, it's like I thought you said it's like how DJ would spell his name on this birth certificate. I'm like, it's not that hard to spell, Matt. I think I could figure that one out. But yeah,
Matthew,
I was like,
like Brady J, add a K in there, maybe a K. Like,
well, the silent K is always a nice addition to any word. It adds some pizzazz with the K.
Very true.
All right, another last maybe note I'm just going to throw out there, and I know this is way off brand, but I honestly, for GPPs, don't hate Connor Hellebuck tomorrow against Dallas either. I think they'll throw the puck on net a lot, and I think Winnipeg's defense is like, maybe it's not as underrated as it was beginning of the year, but I think it's like really, really good. And
he's been playing well. Absolutely.
Besides the last game, they did give up 50 shots against, but before that, like they've been pretty good at keeping the puck to the outside. And Connor Hellebuck is 7-0-2 with a .932 save percentage. Like I did think he might end up being a good goalie last year. It did not pan out, but I don't mind that play at all.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I had the expected goals numbers pulled up for like the league. At this point in the season, Winnipeg ranks in the top 10 in terms of like raw adjusted expected goals against for 60 at 5-5. They've been playing really well, so definitely something to keep in mind. Like that's just kind of the main reason I think that this game, as most Winnipeg games have this season, I just think they'll go overowned. Winnipeg's been very productive, so maybe that's just a flaw on my part, but when the numbers show a very low-paced game, yeah, the perception is that it's going to be a high-paced affair. Like, I'm just more than willing to fade them at these high prices. So, let's go to the last game of the slate.
Yeah, let's finish it off. I mean, it's the lowest expected goals game, but there's definitely a couple intriguing notes. So,
yeah. So, I guess one note is that 16.5 is the number to note. That was Brock Boeser's output last game. Actually, it got edited down to 16. Shame. He must have gotten a block shot taken away from him the last time I checked. But, yeah, he had a hat trick, had an assist, 7 shots on goal. Like, this kid's crazy. I mentioned him at the top of the show. So, obviously, Boeser's in play at this still really low salary. Are you going back to the Wild and stacking him with Bo Horvat, or is this kind of a slate where you're looking to just play Boeser and get your exposure to other games?
I mean, I think it really depends on the format. I mean, in cash, I think I'd take him alone for sure. In GPPs, I think you can be alone. You can put him with Horvat. I'm trying to decide. Honestly, like right now, it's kind of like I don't know exactly what I'd want to do. I mean, last game, obviously, I had him with Horvat. It was massively successful. But does Bo Horvat have the offensive output to warrant a 5.1 price? Like, I mean, he's been good. He's been definitely good enough I think he's fine at the price. But it just makes no sense. He's more expensive than Boeser, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I'm honestly just not sure yet what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's really only a few names that really even warrant consideration for cash at center, which makes Horvat, I think, unnecessarily thrust onto your lap just because, like, he actually is a good play at 5.1, like, objectively speaking. But a couple of the names that I think have some merit over him would be Stepan for 300 less. He doesn't get power play time, but for below 4K, he still gets minutes that I think his floor is decent enough for like cash consideration. And other than that, I mean, you got Eric Staal and Mikko Koivu at that same relative price range, but neither of them are flashy either. So I think that kind of makes Horvat a better play than he initially appears at 5.1. But if possible, I think I'm looking to just play Besser and not put too many of my eggs in the Vancouver basket, just because a lot of people are going to be playing the Besser full stack, and I don't want to be burned when Vancouver goes back to being Vancouver and just doesn't really do much. So
Yeah, and another note is that they're playing the only team on a back-to-back in Detroit. Detroit just shut out Edmonton, which I don't think we have to say anything other than they shut out Edmonton, which is just, boy, Edmonton, like, come on, fella. Like, you're better than that. You are better than that. I know it. Wow. Obviously, I'm just kind of looking at the minutes for Detroit. I mean, nothing's really jumping off the page. I mean, Nyquist had a goal in like 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes of ice time, which is funny. Nothing crazy from the last game, but at the same time, I don't think I'm going to have much exposure at all to Detroit, other than Mantha would be the only guy I'd really strongly consider, or Mike Green. Those would be like the two guys I'd consider from Detroit. And then I think we kind of mentioned the guys who are from Vancouver who we'd play, other than maybe Ben Hutton. I think he warrants consideration at 3-2.
Yeah, I'm just kind of more interested in Shea and Morrissey personally, but I certainly get the correlation play.
It's there. It's not like strong, and I need to do more research before I really decided on it.
All right, so I think that's a pretty good overview of the slate. So, do you want to talk about the trade that went down? Do you want to build a lineup? Do you want to just do guaranteed goals and get out of here? Like,
how about
what
we trade? We at least have to mention the trade. We at least have to mention the trade. I mean, first off, one of the funniest events that I've ever seen, because all of a sudden, Twitter's kind of like saying like, oh, like, Duchesne left the ice. He not only left the ice, a player got hurt. He just followed him off like nothing happened. Like he just kind of like skated like, doop, here I come, left the ice, middle of the game, got traded. But I guess other than that, like if you had to take obviously a 3-team trade, what is the number one winner of this trade? Colorado, Nashville, or Ottawa? Like what team won?
You have the specific. Okay, right here.
I have it up. Okay,
right,
you can go though.
So obviously, Matt Duchene gone from the Avalanche. He went to Ottawa, and in return for Matt Duchene, the Avalanche received from combined. So this gets really confusing because it's a 3-team trade, but essentially from Matt Duchene, they acquired Shane Bowers, a former number 28 overall pick last season, Hammond, just kind of a throw-in goalie, and Samuel Girard, really, really good defensive prospect, and Vladislav Kamenev, who had some hype as being like the next Victor Arvidsson for Nashville. They got a first, second, the third. Like, that is insane.
That's a huge value.
I remember when the Sabres traded for Ryan O'Reilly, and people were like, what are you doing, Colorado? Like, you just gave away Ryan O'Reilly for like 2 decent prospects and a draft pick. And neither of those prospects panned out. The draft pick could, I think Comfort's hurt, but certainly that trade did not work out well for them. But Joe Sakic here he played his cards perfectly here, in my opinion. Like, those are some rock solid assets for just one guy. And then, as I mentioned, Nashville's a part of it. Kyle Turris goes from Ottawa to Nashville, got a 6x6 extension. So, personally, I think that Nashville's a big loser here, even though, like, I think they're the most, I think they're the best team, like, right today, just because they filled a massive hole they had in that second line center position. But yeah, like I said, I really love what Ottawa did. I really love what Colorado did. So, DJ, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think as far as just overall DFS, I think Kamenev could end up being a guy to consider down the road in DFS. This is a guy that has 8 points in 9 AHL games this year, 51 in 70 last season for Milwaukee Admirals. I think he could end up being on Colorado's team in not too long, and maybe getting the minutes to warrant some consideration. I mean, Girard, we've already seen that has decent offensive upside as a defenseman for Nashville. I know some guys were on him. He was like 3K. I don't. Did he get any power play time? I don't know if he got. I think he might have at one point, but I think like
Yeah,
for
you got some when Yossi was out.
yeah, when Yossi was so I mean those two guys are probably gonna come into Colorado's lineup, so that's cool. I think Colorado probably won the deal, but I think every team kind of gets a little something that they needed. Like they look at Nashville and they really needed a second line center and they got it. They may have given up a bit too much, but if you think this is your year, then you got to go for it. Ottawa getting Matt Duchene. I don't think they gave. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, Shane Bauer is what he's 18, 19.
Yeah.
Who knows what you got in him right now? I mean, every kid at this age, it feels like that gets drafted in the first round is probably gonna have great numbers. But I looks like he just started at Boston University, has 6 points in 10 games. Who knows? I mean, he could end up being a great player, but we don't know right now. Yeah, but we can move on from this trade. I mean, you can look into it a lot more on your own. But I just wanted to give a couple DFS notes.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want to just guarantee some goals?
Yeah, let's just guarantee goals. Yeah, on a 6-game slate, building a lineup is kind of arbitrary. We've kind of mentioned all the plays, and we could whatever. So, if you'd like to join us in the group me to talk lineup construction, that would be great. We have like 40 members now, but that's where we'll do that. Guarantee some goals. Matt, I'll let you start.
All right. This is actually, I'm going to go with Boone Jenner. I think he's easily the top play here. And even though he kind of leaves me in a tricky price range for the guaranteed goals, I think he's just like a mortal lock for me in all formats. So Boone Jenner for me, do you have one that's really just jumping out at you right now?
I mean, I really, really, really want Austin Matthews. So I think I'm just going to do it. But if I want to keep it at 11.5, I have no idea who I'm going to take. So I'd probably have to bump it up to Tuck at 3.8, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I feel confident. I feel confident in those two. I'm fine with the Tuck Matthews. If you want to know Ovechkin, like who would you take? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'll go Austin Matthews and Alex Tuck.
All right, that's pretty interesting. All right, so I'm at 5,000, have about 6,500 if I want it. Don't know if I want to use all of it though.
It's really up to you, man. Oh yeah, you're in a tough spot.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not. I didn't leave myself in the most ideal position. I'm gonna go John Carlson. Let's do it. 5.9 defenseman. Like he hasn't scored yet this season. Has 46 shots on goal in 14 games. Playing 29 minutes a night against the Arizona Coyotes. Tonight he breaks the deal.
I really thought you were going to go Panarin. I don't know why. I thought you were going to double down on Columbus. I was like ready for it, and I was like, oh. And then you went Carlson. I was not ready. All right, but we can. Yeah, we'll probably hit the hour mark.
Yeah, always keeping you on your toes.
I guess lastly from me, I'm not sure if we're going to record for Tuesday. It's kind of up in the air. I know, Matt, you're traveling to New York City. I have a project. Doug just got a new dog, so we might not be able to, but we're going to try our best.
Yeah, and as always, we'll have the sim up and running. I think Doug was super busy this weekend with the dog, so that's kind of the way that it works on the weekends, especially. But we'll always be around in the group me, like tossing ideas out back and forth. So even if the sim's not up, certainly drop in and see what's up. News, notes, plays, everything like that gets discussed in there as well as on this podcast. So definitely check that out if you've yet to. And again, morningskatepod.com is our website. Follow us on Twitter at morningskatepod and leave a review. We'll check the reviews next show. Maybe we'll finally get DJ to sing. So.
Yeah. Oh, we did get a guaranteed goal from the group me, and I know this last Jared Juskowitz. You have any idea how to say it? Yep, that's how I'm going to say it. He's guaranteeing Alexander Ovechkin. So I'm gonna give that shout out because he literally just sent it because I said like we recorded for tomorrow. So I'll give that shout out. And then Jimmy Burke also, I'll give you the shout out for taking down whatever you took down in GPP. I think it was NASCAR maybe.
Yeah, I think he had a nice pull in NASCAR.
So I mean everyone's EV positive in the group because everyone's listening to sharp people and sharp people are bouncing ideas and creating money. It's
except DJ.
I am way up on the year. I don't even want to hear it. Get out of here. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, a blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while, you know?
Hey.
All right. So I'll let you finish off. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we have any reviews, but yeah, we'll save it for next time, no matter what.
Well, as we stumble our way to the finish here, yeah, Jimmy had a real nice night at NASCAR, so good for him. Anyways, best of luck on this Monday slate. So, and if you're playing the Light the Lamp, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully I see you up with me at the top of the leaderboard. So, from Doug, from DJ, from myself, thank you for listening. Have a good slate, everyone, and we will see you.